Kim Tae-ho wiped the sweat from his face as he looked at the mountain of broken metal in front of him. The scrapyard stretched as far as he could see. Pieces of old spaceships, broken robots, and twisted alien technology covered the ground like a metal ocean. Most people saw garbage. Tae-ho saw possibilities. "Another load coming in," called Park Da-yoon from across the yard. She pointed to the big trucks driving through the gates. They carried more broken pieces from the latest space battles. The war with the aliens had ended 3 years ago, but the cleanup still continued. Tae-ho walked over to help unload the trucks. His hands were already dirty from working all morning, but he did not mind. Every piece of alien technology that came through these gates was a chance to learn something new. The problem was that most people did not care about learning. They just wanted to melt everything down and sell the metal. "Look at this," Da-eun said, holding up a twisted piece of blue metal. "I have never seen anything like it. It feels warm, even though it has been sitting in the cold truck all morning." Tae-ho took the piece and examined it carefully. The metal was smooth and had strange patterns carved into its surface. When he held it up to the light, the patterns seemed to glow softly. "This was definitely not human technology. We should take this to the workshop," he said. "Maybe we can figure out what it does." Da-eun nodded. She had been working with Tae-ho for 2 years now, and she knew that look in his eyes. When he found something interesting, he would not rest until he understood how it worked. It was one of the things she liked about him, even though it sometimes meant working late into the night. They carried the blue metal piece to their small workshop at the edge of the scrapyard. The building was old, and the roof leaked when it rained, but it was theirs. Inside, they had collected all sorts of tools and equipment. Some were human-made, others they had built themselves from alien parts. Tae-ho placed the metal piece on his workbench and turned on the scanner. The machine hummed as it examined the object with different types of light and energy. After a few minutes, the results appeared on the screen. "This is impossible," Tae-ho said, staring at the numbers. "According to this, the metal contains 3 different types of alien technology all merged together. But the Vorthak and the Nexari hate each other. They would never share their technology." Da-yoon looked at the screen. "Maybe someone forced them to work together? Or maybe," Tae-ho said slowly, "this is something much older. Something from before they started hating each other." He picked up the piece again and noticed something he had missed before. There was a small hole in one side, perfectly round and smooth. It looked like something was supposed to fit there. "Da-yoon, help me look through the new shipment. There might be more pieces like this." They spent the rest of the day going through every box and container that had arrived. Most of it was ordinary broken equipment. But hidden among the debris, they found 6 more pieces that had the same warm feeling and strange glow. Each piece was a different shape, but they all had the same smooth holes. As the sun began to set, Tae-ho arranged all 7 pieces on his workbench. He turned each one slowly, looking for clues about how they might fit together. Da-yoon brought over cups of coffee and watched as he worked. "What if they are like puzzle pieces?" she suggested. Tae-ho nodded. "That is what I was thinking too." He picked up 2 pieces and tried to fit them together. Nothing happened. He tried different combinations, but none of them seemed to work. "Wait," Da-eun said. "What if the holes are not for connecting the pieces to each other? What if something else goes in the holes?" Tae-ho looked at her with excitement. "You might be right, but what would fit in holes this small?" They searched through their collection of alien parts until Da-eun found a box of tiny crystal fragments. Most were clear, but a few glowed with soft colors. She picked up a blue crystal and held it near one of the holes. "Try it," Tae-ho said. Da-eun carefully placed the crystal in the hole. It fit perfectly. Immediately, the metal piece began to glow brighter, and the patterns on its surface started moving like flowing water. "It is working," Tae-ho whispered. "Put crystals in the other pieces." One by one, they inserted crystals into each piece. As they did, the glow grew stronger and the patterns moved faster. When the last crystal was in place, something amazing happened. The 7 pieces began to float above the workbench, moving toward each other and connecting in the air. The completed device was beautiful. It looked like a flower made of metal and light, with energy flowing between its petals. But more importantly, information began appearing in the air above it, of Words and symbols from dozens of different alien languages floated in glowing letters. "Can you read any of this?" Da-un asked. Tae-ho shook his head. "But look at this." He pointed to a section where human letters were starting to appear. The device was translating itself. As they watched, more and more text became readable. The device was some kind of instruction manual, but for what, they could not yet tell. The words spoke of connections between all things, of technology that could understand and work with any other technology. "This is incredible," Da-un said. "If this is real, it could change everything." Tae-ho was about to respond when they heard voices outside. Through the workshop window, they could see lights approaching across the scrapyard. Someone was coming, and they were not supposed to be there after dark. "Hide the device," Tae-ho whispered. Da-un quickly covered it with a cloth just as the workshop door opened. 3 men in expensive suits walked in. Tae-ho recognized one of them as Mr. Harrison, who owned the scrapyard. The other 2 looked like government officials. "Working late. Again, Kim?" Mr. Harrison said. "These gentlemen are from the Technology Assessment Department. They want to look at what you have been building." One of the officials stepped forward. "We have reports that someone in this scrapyard has been experimenting with alien technology without proper permits. That is illegal and dangerous." "We are just fixing broken equipment," Tae-ho said calmly. "Nothing illegal about that." The official looked around the workshop, his eyes stopping on the covered workbench. "What is under that cloth?" "Just some broken parts I was sorting," Da-un said quickly. The official moved toward the workbench, but Mr. Harrison stopped him. "These are good workers. They follow the rules. I am sure there is nothing to worry about here." After a tense moment, the officials left with Mr. Harrison. Tae-ho and Da-un waited until they were sure they were alone before uncovering the device. "We cannot keep this here," Tae-ho said. "It is too dangerous." "Where can we take it?" Da-un asked. Tae-ho thought for a moment. "I know a place. My uncle has an old warehouse outside the city. No one ever goes there." They carefully packed the device and the crystals in a metal box. As they prepared to leave, Da-un asked the question that had been bothering her all day. "Tae-ho, what if this device is too powerful? What if we are not ready for technology like this?" Tae-ho looked at her seriously. "Da-un, for 3 years we have been cleaning up the mess from a war we barely survived. The aliens still treat us like we are primitive children who cannot be trusted with real technology. Maybe it is time to show them they are wrong." As they loaded the box into Tae-ho's old truck, neither of them realized that their discovery would soon change not just their lives, but the entire galaxy. The device they had found was indeed ancient, and it contained secrets that the major alien powers had been searching for centuries. Soon, those powers would learn that the primitive humans had found what they could not. But that night, as they drove through the empty streets toward the warehouse, Tae-ho and Da-un were just 2 people with a mystery to solve and a dream that maybe someday humanity would be respected among the stars. 6 months had passed since Tae-ho and Da-un found the strange device in the scrapyard. The old warehouse had become their secret laboratory, hidden deep in the mountains outside Neo-Seoul. What started as just the 2 of them had grown into something much bigger. Lee Jun-ki arrived early that morning carrying a box of electronic parts he had borrowed from his old military base. The former Army engineer had joined their team 3 months ago when Tae-ho showed him what the device could do. Jun-ki had seen enough alien technology during the war to know that what they had found was special. "Any word from Hyojin?" Jun-ki asked as he set down his box. "She should be here soon," Da-un replied. "She said she had big news about the quantum tests." Dr. Choi Hye-jin was the newest member of their group. She was a quantum physicist who had lost her job at the university for asking too many questions about alien technology. When Tae-ho contacted her through secret channels, she could not resist the chance to study something truly unknown. The warehouse did not look like much from the outside, but inside, it had been transformed into a high-tech laboratory. They had built their equipment from salvaged alien parts and human electronics. Everything was connected to the ancient device, which they had learned to call the interface. The interface was more amazing than they had first thought. Over the past months, they had discovered that it could connect to and control any piece of alien technology. More importantly, it could make different alien technologies work together, even when they came from species that were enemies. Tae-ho was working on their latest project when Hye-jin burst through the door, her eyes bright with excitement. "I did it," she announced. "I finally figured out what the interface really is." The others gathered around as she pulled out her tablet and began showing them charts and diagrams. "The interface is not just a control device," she explained. "It is a universal translator, but not for languages. It translates the basic principles that all technology is built on. Every alien species develops technology in their own way, using their own logic and understanding of the universe. The interface finds the common ground between all these different approaches." Jun-ki scratched his head. "Can you explain that in simpler words?" Hye-jin smiled. "Think of it like this. The Vorthak build everything using crystal technology because that is how their minds work. The Nexari use pure electronic systems because that makes sense to them. But at the deepest level, all technology follows the same basic rules of physics. The interface understands those rules and can make any technology work with any other technology. That is why we have been so successful," Da-un said, understanding. "Human technology is already a mix of different approaches. We take ideas from everywhere and put them together in new ways. The interface just makes us better at it." Tae-ho nodded. "And that is why the aliens never found it, even though they have been looking for centuries. They think in straight lines. We think in circles and spirals and whatever shape works." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm that Jun-ki had installed around the warehouse. Someone was approaching. "How many?" Tae-ho asked. Jun-ki checked his sensors. "3 vehicles, moving fast. They will be here in 2 minutes. "Vorthak or Nexari?" Da-un asked. "Neither. The energy signatures are human but military grade. Someone found us. They had prepared for this day. Important research was already backed up to hidden servers around the world. The interface itself was too valuable to risk, so they had built a special container that could protect it from almost anything." "Start the emergency protocol," Tae-ho ordered. "Download everything to the backup sites. I will get the interface. Ready to move." As they worked frantically to save their research, the sound of engines grew louder outside. Whoever was coming was not trying to hide their approach. "Upload complete," Hye-jin announced. "All research data is now stored in 17 different locations." "Interface is secure," Tae-ho said, closing the protective container. "Jun-ki, is there another way out of here?" "There is an old mining tunnel that leads to the next valley," Jun-ki replied. "But we would have to go on foot." Before they could move, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Soldiers in black armor poured through the opening, their weapons raised. Behind them walked a man in an expensive suit who looked very familiar. "Mr. Kim Tae-ho," the man said with a cold smile. "My name is Agent Park. We have been looking for you for a very long time." "I do not think we have done anything wrong," Tae-ho replied calmly. Agent Park laughed. "Wrong? You have been experimenting with alien technology without government approval. You have been sharing classified information. And worst of all, you have been making the alien governments very nervous." "What do you mean?" Da-un asked. 3 days ago, Ambassador Kwon Soo-jin returned from the Galactic Council with some very interesting news. It seems that both the Vorthak Empire and the Nexari Collective have been asking questions about unusual energy readings from Earth. They want to know what we are hiding. Agent Park walked closer to their workstation. "The government has decided that your little project is too dangerous to continue. We are shutting you down." "You cannot stop scientific progress," Hye-jin said angrily. "What we have discovered could benefit all of humanity." "Dr. Choi, your government disagrees. This technology is beyond our understanding and beyond our control. It is safer for everyone if it is destroyed." Tae-ho felt his heart sink as he watched the soldiers begin destroying their equipment. Months of work were being smashed in minutes. But then he remembered something important. "Agent Park," he said, "before you destroy everything, there is something you should see." "What?" Tae-ho opened the container that held the interface. "Let me show you what we have actually discovered." As the interface activated, the warehouse filled with soft light. Information began appearing in the air, showing connections between technologies that no one had ever imagined before. But more importantly, it began displaying something that made Agent Park's eyes grow wide. "Those are Vorthak ship designs," he whispered, "and Nexari defensive systems. How do you have access to classified alien technology?" "We do not," Tejo explained. "The interface analyzes any technology it encounters and shows us how to improve it. Those ship designs you are seeing, they are human ships enhanced with alien principles." "Those defensive systems?" "They are alien defenses made better using human engineering." Daun stepped forward. "Agent Park, the aliens are not asking questions because they are worried about us. They are asking questions because they are scared. For the first time in thousands of years, they have competition." Agent Park stared at the floating displays. Ships that combined the best of human, Vorthak, and Nexari technology. Weapons that could adapt to any situation. Defensive systems that grew stronger the more they were attacked. "This is impossible," he said. "Our technology is primitive compared to theirs." "That is what they want us to think," Junki said. "But we are not primitive. We are different. And sometimes, different is better." Hyejin brought up another display. "Look at this. These are the actual capabilities of alien technology compared to what they have told us. They have been lying about how advanced they really are. They are afraid that if we catch up, we will surpass them." Agent Park was quiet for a long moment, studying the information floating in the air. Finally, he turned to his soldiers. "Stand down. Do not destroy anything else." "Sir?" one of the soldiers asked. "I need to make a phone call," Agent Park said, "to some very important people who need to see this immediately." As Agent Park stepped outside to contact his superiors, Tejo looked at his friends. They had survived their first real test, but he knew this was just the beginning. Soon, the whole world would know about their discovery. And after that, the aliens would know too. "What happens now?" Daeun asked. Tejo looked at the interface, still glowing softly on the workbench. "Now we show the galaxy that humans are not just good at fixing broken things. We are good at making them better." Outside, Agent Park was having a very difficult conversation with people who did not want to believe what he was telling them. But the evidence was undeniable. A small group of engineers working with scrap metal had discovered something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The war with the aliens was over, but a new kind of conflict was about to begin. This time, it would not be fought with weapons and ships. It would be fought with ideas and innovation. And for the first time in human history, they might actually win. The government meeting had lasted 3 days. Politicians, scientists, and military leaders had argued about what to do with Tejo's discovery. In the end, they made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of shutting down the project, they decided to expand it. But there was a catch. The work had to be done in secret, spread across multiple locations so that no single place would be discovered. If the aliens learned that humans had found the interface technology, they might decide that Earth was too dangerous to exist. Da-Un stood in the control room of their new underground facility, watching screens that showed 15 different research sites around the world. Each site was working on a different piece of the interface puzzle. None of them knew about the others except for the core team. "Status report from Site 7, she said into her microphone. "How are the weapon tests?" "Going?" "Better than expected," came the reply from Dr. Kim in Australia. "The interface-enhanced plasma cannon just cut through a Vorthak armor plate like it was paper. The aliens' own technology cannot stop their own technology when we improve it." Da-Un smiled and made notes on her tablet. Site 7 was developing new weapons. Site 3 was working on spacecraft engines. Site 12 was focusing on defensive systems. Each site thought they were working on a small government project. They had no idea they were part of something that could reshape the galaxy. Any word from Captain Yang? She asked Junki, who was monitoring military communications. "He is on his way back from the Titan colony," Junki replied. "His team successfully tested the new ship designs in actual space conditions. According to his report, a single interface-enhanced fighter can outperform an entire squadron of normal spacecraft." Captain Yang Min-ho had become their military liaison after Agent Park convinced the Earth Defense Force to support the project. Yang understood better than most politicians how desperately humanity needed better technology. During the alien war, human ships had been destroyed by the hundreds because they could not compete with alien technology. The door to the control room opened, and Tejo walked in carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired. He had been working for 18 hours straight on the latest interface modifications. Any progress? Da-Yun asked. Yes and no, Tae-ho replied. The good news is that I figured out how to make the interface work with organic technology. The bad news is that we just made the Kelhari very interested in what we are doing. The Kelhari were one of the smaller alien species, enslaved by the Vorthak Empire for the past 300 years. Their home world had been strip-mined for its rare crystals, and their people were forced to work in terrible conditions. Most humans felt sorry for the Kelhari, but there was little they could do to help. What do you mean they are interested? Junki asked. Tae-ho brought up a display showing communication intercepts. Dr. Bae So-young has been monitoring alien communications for us. 3 days ago, she detected Kelhari transmissions that mentioned the new human technology and hope for freedom. Somehow, they know about our work. Dr. Bae So-young was a xenopsychologist who had joined their team after studying alien behavior patterns for years. She had made an important discovery about why the major alien powers kept their technologies separate. It was not just about maintaining the balance of power. It was about control. The Vorthak and Nexari deliberately keep their technologies incompatible, she had explained to them. This way, smaller species cannot combine different technologies to become stronger. They stay dependent on the major powers. If the Kelhari know about us, others will too, Da-Un said. How long before the Vorthak and Nexari find out? Maybe they already have, Tae-ho replied grimly. He brought up another display showing deep space sensor readings. These are long-range scans from our outer colonies. 3 Vorthak scout ships have been detected near Jupiter. They are supposed to be conducting routine patrols, but they are moving in search patterns. The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. The aliens were actively looking for the source of the new technology. It was only a matter of time before they found it. We need to accelerate the timeline, Junki said. How long before the fleet upgrades are complete? Captain Yang thinks another month, Da-Un replied. But that might be too long. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Site 4. Dr. Lee's voice crackled through the speakers with barely controlled excitement. Control, this is Site 4. You need to see what just happened. We just had first contact with a Kelhari ship. What? Tae-ho exclaimed. How is that possible? They found us, Dr. Lee explained. A small Kelhari transport ship just appeared. In orbit above our facility. They are requesting permission to land. They say they want to talk about mutual cooperation against oppression. Da-Un looked at Tae-ho and Junki. This was not part of any plan they had made. First contact with alien allies was something they had hoped for eventually, but not this soon. Patch me through to Captain Yang, Tae-ho ordered. He needs to know about this immediately. While they waited for Yang to respond, Hyejin brought up everything they knew about Kelhari technology. It was impressive in its own way. The Kelhari were experts at working with organic materials and biological systems. Their ships were partially alive, able to heal themselves and adapt to different conditions. If we could combine their biotechnology with our interface systems, Hyejin said thoughtfully, we could create ships that are truly evolutionary, ships that improve themselves over time. Captain Yang's face appeared on the main screen. He was aboard his flagship somewhere in the outer solar system, but he looked alert despite the distance. I heard about our Kelhari visitors, he said. What are your recommendations? We talked to them, Tae-ho said immediately. If they are willing to work with us against the Vorthak, we need that alliance. It is risky, Yang replied. If the Vorthak discover that we are working with their slaves, they might decide to attack Earth directly. Captain, Da-Un interrupted. With respect, they are going to attack us anyway once they figure out what we have discovered. At least this way, we might have allies. Yang was quiet for a moment, thinking. Dr. Bae, what is your assessment of Kelhari psychology? Can we trust them? Bae's voice came through the speakers from her monitoring station. The Kelhari are desperate, Captain. They have been slaves for 3 centuries. If we offer them real hope of freedom, they will be the most loyal allies we could ask for. Very well, Yang decided. Dr. Lee, allow the Kelhari ship to land, but keep them under heavy guard. I am sending a diplomatic team to Site 4 immediately. As the team prepared for humanity's first secret alliance with an alien species, none of them noticed the small probe that had been watching their facility for the past week. Hidden in a piece of space debris, it had been recording everything. The probe belonged to the Nexari Collective, and its recordings were already being transmitted to their homeworld. The Nexari had suspected that humans were developing new technology, but they had not expected this level of advancement. In the cold, electronic mind of the Nexari Central Intelligence, plans were already being made. The human threat had to be eliminated before it could spread to other species. The collective would not allow their carefully maintained control over the galaxy to be challenged by primitive scavengers. But the Nexari were not the only ones watching. Deep in Vorthak space, crystal computers were analyzing the same information gathered by their own spies. The Empire had also reached the same conclusion. Humanity had become too dangerous to ignore. As the Kelhari ship landed at Site 4 and the first secret negotiations between humans and aliens began, the major powers of the galaxy were preparing for war. They had spent thousands of years keeping the smaller species divided and weak. They would not allow Earth to unite them. The age of human innocence was ending. Soon they would have to fight not just for their technology, but for their survival. The question was whether their new interface-enhanced ships and alien allies would be enough to protect them from enemies who had conquered the galaxy long before humanity ever reached the stars. In her control room, Dayun watched the status updates from all 15 research sites and tried not to think about how many things could go wrong. They had started this project hoping to earn respect from the galactic community. Now they were racing to build an army before that same community decided to destroy them. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were no longer content to play with scraps. The war began without warning on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Yoon Gi-tae was drinking coffee in his command center when the alarm started screaming. His screens lit up with red warning signals as dozens of enemy ships appeared throughout the solar system. The Vorthak and Nexari had formed an alliance called the Convergence, and they had come to destroy humanity before the interface technology could spread any further. "Status report," Yoon commanded, setting down his coffee and moving to the main tactical display. 67 enemy vessels detected, reported his communications officer. 31 Vorthak crystal ships, 36 Nexari cyber cruisers. They have surrounded Earth and are demanding our immediate surrender. Yoon studied the tactical display. The enemy had positioned their ships perfectly to blockade all routes away from Earth. They clearly thought this would be a quick battle against primitive human technology. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Signal the fleet," Yoon ordered. "Activate interface protocols. Show them what human engineering can really do." Across the solar system, human ships that had looked like collections of scrap metal began to transform. Interface technology activated, connecting systems that the aliens had never thought could work together. Vorthak crystal technology merged with Nexari electronics and human innovation to create something entirely new. The first test came when a Nexari attack squadron engaged 3 human destroyers near Mars. The Nexari expected an easy victory. Their ships were faster and their weapons more powerful than anything humans had built before. But these were not the same human ships from the previous war. "Incoming missiles," reported Captain Park from the destroyer Sol. "Nexari plasma torpedoes, full spread." "Activate adaptive defenses," his tactical officer replied. The Sol's hull shimmered as interface-enhanced shields came online. Instead of just blocking the Nexari weapons, the shields analyzed them and began generating the exact frequency needed to neutralize them. The torpedoes struck the ship and simply vanished, their energy absorbed and redirected. "Return fire, Captain," Park ordered. "Target their command ship." The Sol's weapons were a combination of human ballistics, Vorthak crystal focusing, and Nexari energy projection. When they fired, the result was devastating. The Nexari command ship's shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, were completely useless against the hybrid technology. "Direct hit," the tactical officer reported. "Enemy command ship is disabled." The remaining Nexari ships tried to retreat, but the human destroyers were faster than they expected. Interface technology had not just improved human weapons and defenses, it had made their ships more efficient at everything. Similar battles were happening throughout the solar system. Each engagement taught the human ships something new, and the interface technology shared that knowledge instantly with every other human vessel. The fleet was learning and adapting in real time. "Admiral," reported his intelligence officer, We are receiving a transmission from the Kelhari Resistance. They want to coordinate attacks on Vorthak mining facilities. Yoon smiled grimly. The secret alliance with the Kelhari had grown into something much larger. Word of the human interface technology had spread to oppressed species throughout the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, they had hope that the major powers could be defeated. "Put me through to the resistance leaders," Yoon commanded. Tai. Main screen flickered, and the face of a Kelhari commander appeared. Her people looked somewhat like humans, but with skin that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, she was showing the bright gold that meant determination and hope. "Admiral Yoon," she said, "I am Commander Veltar of the Free Kelhari Fleet. We have 30 ships ready to join your fight against the Convergence." "Commander, we welcome your assistance," Yoon replied. "But I must warn you, this war will be more dangerous than anything your people have faced before." "Admiral," Veltar said, her skin shifting to deep blue for seriousness. "My people have been slaves for 300 years. We would rather die fighting for freedom than live another day under Vorthak rule." Over the next several hours, the battle expanded beyond the solar system. The Convergence had expected a quick victory against Earth, but instead they found themselves fighting a growing coalition of species that had been waiting for this chance for generations. Han Ji-woo, working from her intelligence center deep under the Pacific Ocean, coordinated with rebel groups across the galaxy. She had spent months building secret communication networks, and now those networks were proving their worth. "Admiral," she reported, "to Yoon, the Azari have just destroyed 3 Nexari supply bases. The Kelhari Resistance has liberated 4 mining colonies, and we are getting reports that even some Vorthak and Nexari are joining the rebellion." "What do you mean?" Yoon asked. "It seems that not all members of the major species support their government's oppressive policies. Some of them want to see the galaxy become more free and open. This was something the planners had not expected. The interface technology was not just giving humans and their allies better weapons. It was giving them hope, and hope was spreading faster than any military force." The turning point came during the Battle of the Asteroid Belt. A massive Convergence fleet had cornered a group of human and Kelhari ships among the rocky debris. The alien commanders thought they had won a decisive victory, but Da-un, watching from her command center on Earth, had a different idea. "Tae-ho," she called across the room, "are the new evolutionary ships ready for combat testing?" Tae-ho looked up from his engineering station. "The prototypes are finished, but we have not had time for full testing. I think we are about to get that testing opportunity," Da-un replied, pointing at the tactical display. The evolutionary ships were their latest breakthrough. Using combined human and Kelhari technology, they had created vessels that could literally adapt and improve themselves during combat. Each battle would make them stronger and smarter. "Admiral Yoon," Da-un transmitted, "we are sending you 3 experimental ships. They are different from anything we have built before." The 3 evolutionary ships arrived at the battle just as the Convergence fleet was preparing to destroy the trapped human vessels. They were strange-looking craft, with hulls that seemed to flow like living metal and weapons that changed shape as they moved. "All ships, this is Admiral Yoon," he transmitted to the evolutionary ships. "Show them what you can do." The first evolutionary ship engaged a Vorthak battlecruiser. As the enemy fired at it, the ship's hull adapted, becoming more resistant to crystal-based weapons. When it fired back, its weapons automatically adjusted to find the most effective frequency against Vorthak shields. But that was just the beginning. As the battle continued, the ship began incorporating what it learned about Vorthak technology into its own systems. Within minutes, it was using Vorthak crystal-focusing techniques to make its own weapons more powerful. The second and third evolutionary ships were doing the same thing with the Nexari vessels they fought. Each combat encounter made them more advanced, and they shared their improvements with each other through the interface network. By the end of the battle, the 3 experimental ships had become more advanced than anything the Convergence had ever seen. They had defeated an entire enemy fleet while barely taking damage themselves. "Admiral," reported Captain Kim from the first evolutionary ship, "we are reading massive power signatures from the Convergence ships. I think they are preparing to retreat. Let them go!" Yoon ordered. "But track them! We need to know where they are going!" As the Convergence fleet fled the solar system, Admiral Yoon realized that everything had changed. This was no longer a war between advanced aliens and primitive humans. The interface technology had leveled the playing field, and now it was a war between freedom and oppression. But he also knew that the real war was just beginning. The Convergence would not give up easily. They would gather their full strength and return with everything they had. Humanity had won the first battle, but the galaxy was vast and full of enemies who had ruled for thousands of years. The next phase of the war would test not just their technology, but their resolve to fight for the freedom of every species that had ever dreamed of something better. In his command center, Admiral Yoon looked at the tactical display showing human ships spread across the solar system. Each one was a masterpiece of interface technology, a combination of the best ideas from dozens of different species. The aliens had laughed at human scrap metal engineering. Now that same engineering was reshaping the galaxy, one battle at a time. 5 years had passed since the war ended, and President Kim Tae-ho stood at the same podium where human ambassadors had once been laughed at and dismissed. But everything was different now. The Great Chamber of the Galactic Assembly had been rebuilt to welcome representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had never been allowed to speak before. Tae-ho looked out at the assembled delegates and remembered the day he had been just a scrap metal worker in Neo-Seoul. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Now he was the elected leader of the Galactic Technology Sharing Initiative, the organization that had replaced the old Galactic Council after the Revolution. "Friends and colleagues," he began, his voice being translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously by interface technology. 5 years ago, we gathered here as masters and servants, as the powerful and the oppressed. Today, we meet as equals, united by our shared belief that technology should serve all life, not just those who happen to develop it first. In the audience, he could see familiar faces. Da-eun sat with the other directors of the Technology Sharing Initiative. She had become the coordinator of the galaxy's largest cooperative research project, where former enemies now worked together to solve problems that had seemed impossible under the old system. Admiral Yoon had retired from military service and now ran the Galactic Peace Fleet, a joint force made up of ships and crews from dozens of species. Their mission was not conquest, but protection of any world that wanted to remain free. Dr. Hyojin had established the Interface Academy, where young beings from across the galaxy came to learn how to combine technologies in new ways. Her students included humans, Kelhari, and even some former Vorthak and Nexari who had chosen cooperation over domination. The revolution was not won by superior weapons or larger fleets, Tae-ho continued. It was won by a simple idea, that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. When we share our knowledge and combine our different ways of thinking, we can achieve things that none of us could accomplish alone. Ambassador Kwon Soo-jin, now Secretary General of the Galactic Assembly, watched from her place at the leadership table. She remembered the humiliation of those early diplomatic missions when the aliens had treated humanity like primitive children. Now she oversaw a government that included species from across the galaxy, all working together as partners. The transformation had not been easy. After the Convergence was defeated, there had been years of difficult negotiations. Many Vorthak and Nexari leaders had refused to accept the new reality. Some had fled to the outer rim of the galaxy, where they still maintained small, isolated empires. Others had tried to restart the war using ancient weapons and forgotten technologies, but for every attempt to return to the old ways, there were 10 success stories of species working together. The Kelhari homeworld, once a strip-mined wasteland, had been restored to a garden paradise using combined human, Vorthak, and Nexari technologies. The crystal cities of the Vorthak Empire now incorporated organic elements inspired by human architecture, making them more beautiful and efficient than ever before. Most remarkably, the Nexari Collective had voluntarily disbanded their central control system and became a federation of independent communities. Their cybernetics had developed creativity subroutines based on human neural patterns, allowing them to experience art, music, and individual expression for the first time in their history. Today, I want to share with you our latest achievement, Tae-ho announced. Dr. Ko Min-jun, please join me on the stage. A young man in his 20s walked onto the platform carrying a device that looked remarkably similar to the original interface that Taeho and Da-un had found in the scrapyard. But this version was different. It seemed to pulse with a gentle light that felt somehow alive. "This is the consciousness interface," Taeho explained. "Dr. Ko and his team have discovered that the same principles that allow technologies to work together can also help different forms of consciousness communicate more directly." Ko Min-jun had been Taeho's apprentice for 3 years, learning to think like an engineer while studying the deepest mysteries of the interface technology. His latest breakthrough had implications that went far beyond anything they had achieved before. The consciousness interface allows beings with completely different types of minds to share thoughts and experiences directly, Ko explained to the assembly. A crystal-based Vorthak intelligence can temporarily experience what it feels like to think with an organic brain. A collective-minded Nexari can understand what individual consciousness is like. Humans can experience the deep harmony of Kelhari, bio-neural networks. The implications were staggering. For the first time in galactic history, different species could truly understand each other. Not just communicate with words, but share actual thoughts and feelings. "We have tested this technology with volunteers from 12 different species," Ko continued. "The results have been extraordinary. Conflicts that seemed impossible to resolve were settled in hours when both sides could literally see the situation from their opponent's perspective." As Ko demonstrated the device, Taeho reflected on how far they had all come. The scared young engineer who had hidden alien technology from government inspectors was now helping to guide the evolution of galactic civilization itself. But perhaps the most important change was one that could not be measured in technology or territory. The galaxy had learned to dream again. For thousands of years, the major powers had maintained control by convincing everyone that the current order was the only possible one. Species had accepted their limitations and stopped trying to grow beyond them. The interface revolution had shattered those limitations. Now, beings across the galaxy were constantly pushing boundaries, combining ideas in ways that had never been tried before, creating solutions that previous generations would have thought impossible. As we look toward the future, Taeho concluded his speech, we must remember that our greatest strength is not any single technology or discovery. Our greatest strength is our willingness to work together, to learn from each other, and to never stop asking the question, what if there is a better way? After the formal session ended, Taeho found himself in the memorial garden that had been built to honor those who died in the revolution. The garden combined plant life from hundreds of worlds, creating a living symbol of unity in diversity. Da-yun joined him there, carrying 2 cups of coffee just like she used to in their old workshop. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The simple days when we were just fixing broken things in the scrapyard?" Taeho smiled. "Sometimes. But then I remember that we are still fixing broken things. We are just working on a bigger scale now." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching alien children from a dozen different species playing games that combined rules from all their homeworlds. These children would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal and war was something they read about in history books. "Taeho," Da-un said quietly, "do you think we did the right thing? Sometimes I wonder if we change things too fast." Taeho considered the question seriously. The galaxy was broken, Da-yun. It had been broken for thousands of years. Maybe we could have been more careful, more gradual. But how many generations should have stayed enslaved while we took our time? As if to answer his question, a young Kelhari approached them. Her skin showed the bright colors of joy and excitement as she spoke. "President Kim, my grandmother wanted me to give you this." She handed him a small crystal sculpture. "She said to tell you that her great-grandmother died in the mines, but she lived to see freedom. She wanted you to know that every day of liberty was worth all the risk." Taeho accepted the gift with deep emotion. These were the moments that reminded him why they had fought so hard for change. Later that evening, Ko Min-jun found Taeho in the old workshop that had been preserved as a museum. The original interface still sat on the workbench where they had first activated it, now behind protective glass. "Teacher," Ko said, "I have been studying the historical records of the interface. I think there is something you should know." "What is it?" Ko pulled up a holographic display showing archaeological data from dozens of worlds. The interface was not unique. We have found evidence of similar devices on planets throughout the galaxy, all created by the same ancient civilization. They left them behind as tests. Tests for what? For species that were ready to take the next step in galactic evolution. The interface only responds to minds that are naturally collaborative and creative. Species that think only of domination or control cannot make it work properly. Tejo stared at the data. You are saying that humanity was chosen for this? Not just humanity, Ko replied. Any species that developed the right combination of curiosity, adaptability, and willingness to work with others. We just happened to be the first ones to pass the test. As Tejo walked home through the streets of New Geneva, the capital of the Galactic Assembly, he saw the future taking shape around him. Humans worked alongside Kelhari engineers on new starship designs. Former Vorthak nobles studied art with human teachers. Nexari individuals explored philosophy with alien poets. The galaxy had become a place where anyone could dream of a better tomorrow, and where those dreams might actually come true.